So this is our first workshop on the idea of reframing the question. I'm going to start with a story. It's a story that one of our, a kind of guru of social innovation, a guy called Charlie Leadbeater, often tells. So it's his story, not mine. And it's about the idea of deaths from fires. So in the 90s in the UK, there were a lot of deaths from fires. There were a lot of fires in the home, and people would die en route to the hospital. And in thinking about how to solve the issue, a lot of money was invested in improving fire engines. So improving the technology around fire engines, improving how quickly a fire engine could get to the scene of the fire, improving the way that firemen were taught about how to put out fires. But when they looked at what the drivers were, and actually deaths from fires reduced over that time. When they looked for what the drivers of the reduction in fires were, it wasn't about the improvements in fire engines. The money they spent on fire engines didn't really make a difference. What made the difference was the introduction of smoke alarms. Changes in regulations that meant that homes had smoke alarms across different kinds of homes. And the reason I'm telling you that story is because sometimes we invest a lot of time and energy in the wrong question. How do we improve fire engines? When really the question is, what is causing fires and how do we address the causes of that issue? And that's what we want to spend a bit of time now thinking about with you. For given issues, what is it that we're really trying to achieve and how do we do that? We want to share with you our approach to reframing the question. We hope that will help you to have better ideas and to articulate your theory of change better. So I'm going to hand over to Louise. She's going to kick us off and get us thinking, and we're going to use the lens of carbon emissions, of climate change. It's just a lens. It's not we're not kind of doing it because we think that's the most important issue or anything, but hopefully it'll get us to have the same conversation. So, Louise.
Thanks, Cynthia. Hello. Okay, so as Cynthia said, carbon emissions, just the example that we're going to use to think about how we think about problems in a different way, how we understand the drivers. And this is all going to lead forward to when we're thinking about where we can make the most difference, where we can make the most impact, what is possible for us to implement when we're starting our own projects. So it's about thinking about what the real drivers are and what the real issue is. Surprise, surprise, please could everybody stand up? Again. Okay, so imagine across a line, just across here, across the length of the room, and I'd like you to all go and stand on the line and let me know whether you agree strongly or disagree strongly with the following statements. If you agree strongly, please could you go and stand over here. If you kind of agree, you know, there is some reason in what I'm saying. You can stand about this area. If you're completely, you know, you don't agree or disagree, around the middle. You kind of disagree, and you really disagree with what I say, stand over there, okay? So we're thinking about what the drivers of carbon emissions are. Why do we have such high carbon emissions? It's the fault of governments. Governments cause carbon emissions. I agree that government, it's their fault. So governments, it's their fault that carbon is so high, that we have so many high emissions. It's not their fault at all that governments have, that we have such high carbon emissions. Please stand on the line where you think. Okay. Oh, lots of in the middles. There's some people, oh, no, great. I really think it's the government's fault that we have such high carbon emissions. Can you tell us a little bit about why you're standing here, please?
Sure, because I think the issue of carbon emissions is not only an environmental issue. It's actually a political issue. It stands at the level of policymaking. It's the current model of economic growth that leads to so much carbon emissions and its consequences. Yeah, this is why I'm standing here.
Thank you for sharing your view. For being alone, just in case you feel lonely. Okay, why are you standing here? You kind of agree?
Yes, I kind of agree. I think it's both, governments that are responsible for it. For example, like the Kyoto Protocol, some countries don't follow it. And then also, there's the debate between emerging markets versus developed countries, whether or not, they should be allowed to have, higher carbon emissions because they're still in development. So I think there's a lot of disagreements between country leaders on this issue, but at the same time, there are other organizations such as companies and corporations that could help alleviate the problem. So that's why I'm kind of straddle in between.
Thank you for sharing your view. Tom, chocolate, please. Okay, someone who kind of disagrees. Okay, kind of disagree. Is slightly more disagree than agree. Is that right?
Yeah, I think usually it's all about the users, and government is policy making, but users take the choice. That's what I think.
Okay, that's going to be interesting for my next question. Who disagrees? Who disagrees the most? That would be you.
I think this carbon issue is, I agree with the other end that it's the current model of economy, but that doesn't mean that it makes it a government issue. I mean, the government could do something, but this is maybe a thing about capitalization or the industrialized age, like the reminiscent of the industrial age, where we take more and more and more.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your view. Tom? Great. Okay, we're just going to do this one more time. I'd like to know how much or to what extent you think it's the fault of individuals and our own actions. So if you think it really is quite because of us, we really are responsible for this as individuals and our own actions and the way we choose to live our lives. If you really agree with that, come over here. But if you think there's a much bigger thing about this, that it maybe is more the government's or, it doesn't matter if I turn off my light, because what difference is that going to make? Or maybe I would quite like to fly to Hong Kong more regularly. Yes, please. Then come and stand over this side. Say, I disagree and I agree. And I'm really excited that so many people are over here. Oh, we have some in the middle. Okay, let's go to someone that agrees. Who'd like to tell me why they agree that it's individuals?
Hi, I'm Carmen, and I totally agree that individuals should be responsible, because every organization, institutions, policymakers, whoever, they are actually individuals, and we have the choice. We have the choice to stick together and advocate the idea and to persuade people to come to us. And a lot of civil societies, they have been doing a good work in having maybe turning the lights off, things like that. And I think this is a culture that we individuals form the society. So that's why I choose this. Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing your view. I'm going to ask one more person over here, because some people have gone so far over here. I think they might get a bit angry if I ask them. Hi.
Hi. Hi. For me, such as we stand here because we believe that as we individuals, we can make some difference. We can make some change. So I choose individuals can lower the carbon dioxide here.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to ask one more question on this side. Someone that really disagrees with this view. Hi. Tell us why you really disagree with some of these views over here.
So I think this is it needs a collective wisdom to tackle this problem. It's not just a single person. It's kind of like it's kind of a systemic problem which requires or which asks for a systemic solution. That means, say, even if everybody changes their light bulb, which is following the Al Gore's model, but that is not going to change much. I mean, the real big thing is like the infrastructure, those big stuff, and those big stuff can only be done with, say, the wise decisions by the government or the big companies. That's why I'm standing here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing your view. You can all return to your seats now. Thank you very much. Oh, and Tom, who looks extremely tired of running up and down, will bring some chocolates around, and there's some more to go around later on too. So what your view is on some of these really big issues and what you understand to be the driver of some of these really big issues will really affect the way that you go about doing the work that you do. It will really affect going about doing the projects that you choose to do, because it will affect the areas in which you decide to tackle them, a bit like why Tom decided to do the program that he did within schools. And essentially this is all reflected by your own personal theory of change. And I'm going to pass back to Cynthia, who will talk a little bit more about theories of change now, and then introduce to you a model that we use in the Global Innovation Academy to try and get to the bottom of some of these issues.
Thanks, Louise. So I was so impressed by the analysis I heard in the room, and also I think it's a good point that there is a lot of disagreement on the causes of climate change or the causes of carbon emissions. And we find a couple of frameworks helpful in just teasing out the issues and make us better able to have a conversation. So this is one incarnation of a theory of change. It's just a simple statement. And I'll just go through it. And if you can't read it, because my writing is so terrible, it's in your workbooks on page 17. So the statement goes like this. If users do or have or feel something, they will something, which will lead to something. That's it. It's as simple as that. I can't remember who was it that was saying it's a political issue. The governments need to take leadership. I remember. Let's say so we think it's helpful to start here, to start with the outcomes that you want to achieve. So let's say that we want to reduce CO2 emissions. What's your name? Yusin. So Yusin thinks that what's really important is for the government to sort of take leadership, to sort of to act, and if governments show strong leadership, then that will have the big impact on reducing carbon emissions. So the theory of change might be if governments do or have or feel or show, I guess, leadership, they will take action, maybe, which will lead to reduced carbon emissions. Does that work? That's one version. Another might be if we do successful lobbying or campaigning or advocacy, governments will take action, and that will also lead to reduce carbon emissions. If that were true, then what we should spend our time doing would be to focus on successful lobbying. So what I would encourage you to do would be to think about, well, what is successful lobbying? Who are the most successful models of lobbying and leadership? What is in our reach? What are we able to do as young people, or what is our sphere of influence? And how can we do that in order to achieve that? But someone else said, I can't remember who said this, about turning the lights off, kind of individuals' behavior. Do you remember?
Yeah, that was me.
That was you. Yeah. Thanks, Louise. I guess Louise's view is that if people turn the lights off, that would lead to lower carbon emissions. And so maybe if we could develop something that would make people turn the lights off, that would lead to lower carbon emissions. Like maybe if we persuaded you that that was a good idea, or maybe if we made it illegal for you not to do it, or maybe if We made it really easy for you to turn all the lights off, maybe from your bedside table when you went to bed. And if you believe that, then that would be what you would spend your time coming up with. So this sort of simple framework, it's nothing, it's no rocket science, and definitely nothing that I know all of the intelligent minds in the room couldn't have thought of themselves. But I think it's a helpful way of just thinking through, if you start from thinking about what is the ultimate objective, the ultimate outcome that you want to achieve, if you think about what is the key behavior that you think drives that, what is it that you or you can persuade others to do, and how might you do that in order to see that impact happen? And I want you to use that framework when you're going out and doing exercises over the next couple of days. But there's something else in here, which is about the kind of interconnectedness between different issues. I don't know if you can see this. If not, I'll pull it out in a little bit. Could I have a slide? We have our colleagues at the Helsinki Design Lab, which is a design institute based in Finland, but within the Finnish government, are interested in how design can help people think about the interconnections between different issues. So for example, maybe it's not a question of either the government or individuals. Maybe it's a question of how they can work together. Or maybe it's a question of how can we connect up individual behavior with the way that houses are designed, or with the way that cars are designed, or the way that our transport system are designed. So what we really want to do is help you think about what we're really trying to achieve, what are the interconnectivities between different issues, and on the basis of that, what might a really strong theory of change be, and hopefully we hope that that will be a prompt for you to have ideas about what you might be able to do in this space. So I'm just going to talk through this framework, and if you find it helpful, we'll use that to go out and frame our research exercise. This exercise starts with the example of the elder, of an aged person, and the elder is in the middle of this framework. And on the outer ring, in the inner ring is the individual. And on the outer ring here are their personal networks, their family, people they know, people they're engaged with. Around them again is their neighborhood, the people that they live with. And around them again is the city and then the national level. So this kind of map of rings is about thinking about the scales of the issue, or the scales of the people involved in a given situation. So the elder is in the middle. Their personal networks are one rung around that. Their neighborhood is around that, and then it's the city, and then it's the national level. And this is helpful, I think, for thinking about who are the people that are responsible at different levels. So the government is on the outside, and big national corporates, people with a lot of influence on the outside, individuals, their families, personal behavior is on the inside. And then around that are the different aspects of the issue. So what does an elderly person worry about? And what are the aspects of their lives that are kind of critical and have some bearing on the way that they live? One of them is safety. Another, the environment. Another is a feeling of wanting to belong. Another is health. I don't really know what self-actualization means, do you, Louise?
I think it's actually
a fulfilling life. These are just some that they came up with. They're not like conclusive or anything like that, but this is an idea about how to map one issue around different areas and be able to kind of use that to look at the links between different areas. So we're going to try doing that ourselves with this map up here. Maybe I could get one or two of you to come up to the front to help me do this. What's your name? Marcus. I'm Cynthia. Nice to meet you. So we're going to do this exercise with the issue around transport. And we're going to use this, again, just as a lens to look at the issues around climate change. So let's say we've got in the middle a car user. I know that there are relatively few car users in a city like Hong Kong because your transport system is so incredible. How many of you drive your own car? Can I have a show of hands? So let's think about the car user at the center. And let's think about what is it, why is it that someone might use their car? What are the factors that affect whether someone drives or doesn't drive? Has anyone got any ideas? Louise, do you? About factors about what might make someone use a car?
I'd use it if it was quicker.
If it was quicker?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you mind writing down speed on here?
You can use it on the
Yeah, that's good. So if it was quicker,
if it was quicker.
to save time.
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What do you think? Why else might you use a car? What's that? Yeah, family. If you've got. Yeah. What? Tell me more about that, because there's a lot of people, or.
I think with family you got elderly, you got kids, so
Yeah.
it's easier.
It's
just
easier.
simply easier.
It's easier because you can move everybody around in one go.
Yeah, in one go.
And it's
you don't
easier.
you don't have to hustle around with the waiting the bus or
Right.
riding to the MTR station, etc.
Right. So it's easier. You don't have to spend so much time. It's more comfortable too.
Yep.
Okay. That's a good one. What else? Yeah.
Or maybe the destination itself is unreachable by
Right.
public transport, so
Right.
then you have to take your own.
Right. Access.
Yeah.
Right. So it's too far to go. Right. That's another good one. Over here.
And there's the freedom of getting anywhere.
Freedom.
At any time you want.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a big
the main
one.
thing, yeah.
Because I don't have a car, and I really like driving. It's really nice to be independent and to feel kind of free. I think that's a really good one. What else?
I didn't realise I'd be getting so much exercise. That's why I don't use the car.
I don't know, but I think parking space is one huge issue. Because for people who drive, especially inside, if you look at different countries like Russia,
Right.
they have a lot of cars because they've got parking spaces everywhere.
Right.
But if you don't have parking spaces like Hong Kong, then the cars suddenly go down.
Right.
It's the ability to stay. So parking spaces might
Right.
sound trivial, but
I think that's a really great point, and that's kind of linked to why you might not have a car as well. So it's kind of flipping the issue on its head. You wouldn't have a car if there was no space to park it, or if it was really expensive to park it. London has that issue too. Why else wouldn't you have a car?
If you would have access to a car anywhere, anytime you want, you might not necessarily want to have your own your car, own
Right.
a car.
Right. If you had access to a car anytime, anywhere you want, how might that be possible? Like if you could have taxis or something?
Actually, there is an American company called the Zipcar who is actually doing this.
Yeah. Zip cards. Everyone know about zip cards? It's a system that's in London too, where a company has a fleet of cars, you get a membership, and then I think you can swipe. I think you book it out, you can book it out on your phone, and then you swipe the car and pick it up and drive it somewhere, and you pay by the hour. So you don't really need to have your own car, although it's pretty expensive to do that.
No, it's quite cheap.
It's cheap. Oh. Anyone else? Yeah, why wouldn't you have, yeah.
You talked about why we won't have cars.
Yes, yeah.
The petrol price.
Yeah. Expensive. Yeah, I think that's good. That's a good point. Especially, and I guess that's especially the case somewhere like Hong Kong, where the public transport is relatively cheap, and it doesn't make sense to do it. Any other reasons why you wouldn't drive a car? Is there anyone here that is like on a point of principle, I wouldn't drive a car? Yes.
The fear of accidents.
Yeah.
You might crash.
Yeah. 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 Carbon emissions. You wouldn't drive because of carbon emission? That's very. I'm very pleased to hear you say that. Yeah, I think that's true, and I think a lot of people share that view. I think many of us, it's not really a choice that we have, but for those of us that do have the choice, I think that's a really good point. So we have a number of issues all around here. Some of them are kind of aligned. You've already started grouping them. That's so brilliant. So speed, time, quicker, they're all around here. That's one kind of issue. Do you want to write it in pen over here so that if you think about this segment as being one thing? Yeah, so maybe I'll put the first one up. So this is all about speed. I'll hand this to you. What else have we got? We've got comfort, family needs up here. That's another good one, another good grouping. So I'd write it up somewhere over here. Over here, we've got money. I'm going to put money down here. And space, I'm going to put down here. And I'm going to put comfort and safety together. I know that's not a great fit, but I've only got a limited amount of choices. And freedom and convenience. Freedom and convenience is over here, yeah, that's good. And this top one can be about access, so like the destination being unreachable. Does that make sense? Okay, that's very good. So when people were thinking before about issues or reasons that people might occupy one aspect of this map rather than another, if we think about going back to the thing of circles, if sort of national government is out here, and the individual is down here, some factors like family needs, I might put down in the kind of comfort area, down with the family. Does that make sense? Is this making sense to you? So at the individual or at the sort of immediate, your immediate circle of people that you know, family needs, comfort and safety around the family are really critical. If you think about environmental concerns, I think the individual, it's kind of a personal environmental concern, right? It's kind of a personal thing that you care about. For speed, again, it's kind of whether it's an individual or otherwise. Speed, if down at this end, it's about the individual and their need to get somewhere quicker. But moving out towards national government or city level or at the kind of neighborhood level, there are other factors at play. So for example, around comfort, some of the people up here who affect that are the people who build our roads. The people who regulate our traffic. Under environmental concerns, it might be national organizations that lobby for change, like NGOs, or it might be governments, again, who have responsibility for our carbon emissions, or it might actually be out here super governmental organizations like the UN and others who take responsibility out here. What about parking spaces? Can we think about what the different levels of the issue might be? Over here, sorry.
Road infrastructure.
Infrastructure, yeah. So infrastructure, road infrastructure, I would put maybe at the city level, do you think? What else? Cars.
As in price.
The price of parking. The price.
Like businesses.
Businesses, yeah. I'd put that over here. What else? Any other ideas? What's that? Insuring the car, yeah. The kind of cost, I guess, of insuring the car, that might all go over here. What's that? Tax. And cost of insurance. So those are things that the individual has a kind of bearing on. And then I guess if you think about the cost of the tax or the insurance or whatever else, up here is the government who has kind of control over that. So for example, if you thought that really the key issue that was driving car use, let's say, probably not in Hong Kong, but say somewhere like in the UK, was that it was just too cheap to run a car, then you might say that the cost of tax thing could be what we need to influence. It has a big impact on the people down here, and the people who control it are people out here. So that's where we need to focus our energies. So this exercise, I think, is quite a complex one, and it's sometimes difficult to get into, but I think it's a helpful way of seeing the connections between different issues and seeing one problem at these different angles. Thank you very much. Will you sit down? Thank you.
So actually, I'm thinking how I put these labels. For example, for fuel price is definitely a systematic thing.
Yeah.
So I rather put here because it's a countrywide thing, but it's the decision of these guys right here. The decision level is here, but the policy level is here. I think, therefore, if I try to put these, I really need to think for a while where I should correctly identify the circle.
I agree, it's difficult.
Yeah.
Here's what I think. Here's how I think it's useful, is if you think about the factors that influence the individual here and the factors that influence different levels, so the neighborhood or businesses, say, or the city level or government level, I feel like that helps to, so something like a fuel price is difficult because, I mean, the government sets it and it affects individuals. So I might have 2 post-it notes. If we had more time, that's what we'd have done. Okay. And we'd have said the cost of fuel is the thing that affects people over here, and governments have the power and they are interested in changing that. That's how I would do it. And that's kind of what we'd like you to do in the next section. So we have a number of research tasks that we'd like you to do. We'd like you to, some of you will be staying here and will be, do we know if we have Wi-Fi in here? That's another question. Well, some of you will be staying in here and doing desk research. Some of you will be speaking to Chongchan Yao, who will be our kind of expert. Some of you will be interviewing him. Some of you will be going out into the street and interviewing real users and getting a sense of why they use cars, how do they feel about the transport system in Hong Kong. And some of you will be doing role play. You'll also be going outside and you'll think about what might it be like to engage with the transport system if you were, say, an elderly person, or if you had mobility issues, or if you had a family that was full of individuals. That's what you'll all each be doing. Each of you is about to be given an envelope by Louise that has in it instructions for what you're about to do. And you it should be fairly clear. What we want you to do is to think about insights, facts, issues at each of these different levels that affect transport and car use in the city of Hong Kong. We hope that when you come back, you can write up some of those issues up here on the wall, and that will help you to understand the issue. A couple of things before I let you go. Before you get too worried about reading your task, I'm going to get you to turn around. Before you do that, just a couple of things before you get going on your research task. If you are interviewing people, or if you're doing a role play type exercise, get personal, thinking about trying to bring the facts to life. Use stories if you can, hang on to stories and look for them if you can find them. If you are asking people questions, remember that research can be intrusive, so we have to stick to some kind of ethical code. So honor trust, don't let participants, don't let people down if you're interviewing them, don't betray their confidences, tell them what you're doing the research for. Get consent, avoid undue intrusion, and use confidentiality and anonymity. So basically, some of these instructions should be in your pack, but basically if you're going out and speaking to people in the street, please be sensible about how you do it, and be respectful towards the people that you do that to. So you're looking for 3 things. You're looking for facts, you're looking for what are the issues that affect car use and carbon emissions in Hong Kong. You're looking for insights, so what is something rich and interesting that affects why someone might use a car versus something else. To kind of illustrate the point, let's take Louise. Louise really likes coffee. So that's a good insight. So if you went out and you found that and we were doing something about Louise, you could say, Louise really likes coffee, and that would go in at the individual level. But Louise loves to be sociable and she has good taste is a better insight, because it tells you something more about Louise, and it helps you to think about how you might design something that is suited to her on the back of it. So think about that when you're going out and finding things. So yeah, so the instructions should be fairly clear. You should be back here at 11:40. At 12:10. You should be back here at 12:10. Take post-it notes with you. There, it should be over there. Write down insights as you go along, and see you back here at 12:10. Thanks.